Okay, we have reached the end of the trade union topic, and as a bit of review, we're going to look at the whole timeline from the beginning to the end and just kind of add in all the extra notes that we need to know, because these are all the key details, but we need to make sure that we're happy with all the different types. Now, I'm actually going to start with the cooperatives and the kind of friendly societies, because that's what we've done the last bit of. So I'm going to start down at the 1793 with the Friendly Societies Act. And this is the first legal recognition of friendly societies. And they have protection of funds straight away, which actually trade unions didn't get. So as you can see already in the whole timeline, friendly societies already have a one-up on the trade unions because they're already legally recognised. They're so kind of popular at this point that actually by 1803, 8% of the population are actually in a friendly society. So again, it already shows how popular these are. And if you're looking at an influence question, one of the key things you could argue is that actually friendly societies from the beginning are not seen as a big threat to them. Now, if we actually look then as well at New Lanark, which kind of runs a little bit before this, so we've got kind of 1799 to 1828, so across this kind of time period, New Lanark is one of the first ways we see an actual example of it working, and this is with the guy Robert Owen. He is going to come back in later on when we look at the poverty topic as well, so he's kind of a good name to remember. And what he does is he comes up with a cooperative plan. So he abandons punishment. He doesn't have any punishments for his works. There's no fines. There's no kind of docking of pay if you're late and things like that. And instead he uses incentives to encourage his workers. And hopefully you will remember the kind of silent monitor, the blocks that kind of are above the workstation. That's a really good example of it. He also just has general better working conditions. So for instance, he doesn't have children working there. They have to be over 10. And also he has a 12-hour day. So it's far better. And the whole co-op side of it is that he has shops and free education based from his profits. So again, he is like the prime example of how co-ops work. So we have the legal recognition and we have a prime example. The only problem is that as soon as New Lanark kind of stops, as soon as Robert Owen kind of gives up, that's it. That kind of dies of death. And that's why it takes quite a few years after to get the Rochdale Pioneers, who are the next example of friendly societies. Now, the Rochdale Pioneers, we did a lot of these. We did this with our zines. They are 28 men who basically formalised the whole process. Rather than just having one example, they're coming up with a model. So that's what we'll put, 28 men who formalised the model. And they are much more professional. They have what we call profit return, which is the same premise that co-op, as in the store, uses today, where you are all a member. And if you buy stuff from there, you get that money kind of back. And that just encourages more people to actually shop there. A little bit like a loyalty card would be, say, with any kind of store actually today. So encourage more to buy from there. Sorry, my pen keeps dying. And what is so amazing about the Rochdale Pioneers is that actually by 1863, they now have 332 new co-op shops. And we know distinctly that 251 of them, 251 are actually made after these guys. I'll put made from these guys. Because they're actually been inspired by it. They use the model, they have the formal approach, and that seems to work. That then kind of links to 1855, which has our Friendly Societies Act, which again just kind of gives them more power. So they no longer actually need to register with the Justice of the Peace, which is something that they had to do originally. I'll just put JP, but that means Justices of the Peace. So again, they're not seen as a threat. They're not a worry. And by 1855, we have over 1 million members. So we're doing really well. And that kind of is where friendly societies kind of stop. They have got legal recognition already. They kind of get less regulations. They have done really well with the Rochdale Pioneers. And so generally the friendly societies have gained quite a bit of influence, but it is all looking at the welfare rather than actually working conditions. So that in a nutshell is the friendly societies and the co-ops. Now what we're going to have a look at is the trade union. So I'll use a different colour pen for this. So I'll use blue. And we're going to go start right at the beginning because that's what we did quite a while ago now, it feels. So we're going to have a look at the London Printers Association, which again, same time as our Friendly Societies Act. So you would think it would have quite a bit of influence, but it doesn't, to be fair. Again, as always, the early ones are for skilled workers only. So we have skilled workers. It is the first sign of unity though, because it is kind of banding together. And the way they banded together was that they had 539 signatures, which was to try and increase their fees, not like kind of increase their wages as such, but increase their fees because they're trying to protect their skills. So that is our first sign of unity. It does kind of work. It's pretty good, but it's low scale, which is what is the problem with all our kind of early trade unions during this period. And one of the reasons why they don't work is because of the Combination Acts, which, as we know, made unions illegal. It is, as we've said before, primarily a reaction from the French Revolution, though. They are scared, and that is why a lot of these ones fail. Okay, and also a little bit after this, 1799 as well, we have got the Association of Weavers. They do very well as well because, again, they're small scale, but they actually end up getting 14 branches in Lancashire. By 1799, so by this time. But again, it's born out of this fear. So it's born out of the hunger politics because of rising food prices due to the war. So the French Revolution has quite a big impact on unions because of the fear, but because of also the hunger politics involved. So again, still quite low scale. It carries on in the same vein because in 1818 we have the Philanthropic Hercules in London and the Philanthropic Society in Lancashire. And again, these are a show of unity. They are what we would call the first union of unions. But they are very flawed. They're unable to establish a core group. And so they fail. Okay. Again, part of the reason is because we've got these things banding around. So we've got Combination Acts, but also Master and Servant Act, which is the breaking of a contract, is now considered illegal. And it's prisonable. It's an offence that would send you to prison for if you actually broke that contract. So again, there's still a lot of kind of aggro with this until the 1824 Acts being repealed. So this is the Combination Acts being repealed, and that suddenly means that unions can thrive, which is what they've been needing. And because of that, we see in 1829 the Grand General Union of the Operative Spinners in Great Britain and Ireland, and also the National Association for the Protection of Labour. Both are made by John Doherty, and they're both made after the legal, so made after the legal aspect, but they only last 2 years because, again, they can't organise themselves, they can't get sorted, they're not quite sure what they need to be, and that's why we kind of end the early trade unions with this. Attempts are good, but in reality it doesn't quite work. And that's where we stop with the early trade unions. Okay, so we kind of consider up to about 1829 It's our last example, because in 1834, there is a turning point. And 1834, we see the turning point. I've put it in a box because I think it's kind of marked in its importance, because we had the Grand National Consolidated Union. Now, this is considered the high point. And it's considered the high point because it's got 1 million members, so say. And that is huge. Because again, it's a bit of a union of all unions. It shows the determination. It shows the national scale of it. And it's therefore a really good attempt. Problem is, just like the early unions before it, it is not organised. So it doesn't have enough funds due to the subscription. So apparently only 12,000 actually paid subscriptions. But also the government are not willing to accept it yet. And it failed due to the document, which you remember was what the employers made employees sign so that they actually knew they weren't part of a union at all. So again, it kind of doesn't get started. And that's a bit of a worry. Now in 1834, we also have the Tolpota Martyrs. We did our zines on this, so this is kind of one you should know quite well. But these were the farm labourers who got sent to Australia due to that illegal oath. It was way too harsh. It was way too aggressive of the government. So again, it kind of shows that the government is not on side yet. So it's a turning point in terms of the people, but it shows that the government is not willing to help. The employers are not willing to help. And that is the problem. Just as a point though, as you can see, we have the Rochdale Pioneers that are kind of kicking around just after this. They're doing really well. So if you have a comparison question, you could argue that the friendly societies are much more accepted and are doing much, much better than, say, the unions at this point. All right. This is our kind of 1834 general unions. And again, we stop there because then we have our next period, okay, which is 1850 to 70, which we consider the new model union period. And that's because we see these new models, these new ways of working. And that starts really with the Amalgamated Society of Engineers. Now, these guys are way more formal. It is still for skilled, so don't forget that. So it's trying to assert skilled workers. But they are seriously organised. They have a secretary, they have a treasurer, they have subscriptions. They actually get loads of money. So I'm going to put generated lots of money because they ended up getting something like £12,000 per annum by 1852. So again, they're making lots of money. They're actually able to help, and they actually prove this by helping out with the London Builders Strike, which was where they gave free lots of £1,000 to help the London builders to actually successfully strike. This now works. All of the planning and everything that's been going on here is actually now working. So theory is being put into practice and it's now effective because of this merging, because of this kind of organisation. The ASCJ also follow this. Very, very similar. So again, they've nicked the ideals from the ASC. Very similar thing. But again, both of these believe in negotiation, not militancy. Which, to be fair, some of the earlier ones also kept failing on. They kept being more militant. They kept being a threat. And that's why the government reacted really harshly. So these work really, really well, the NMUs, and there's lots of argument to suggest that the NMUs cause the TUC, which is up here. But before the TUC happens, we also have something called the Royal Commission. Now, Royal Commission is just a committee, and the committees are formed to basically discover aspects. So for this case, it was a committee to look at whether unions should be made legal, as in, although they're legal here, are they protected? Are they looked after? So committee to look at unions being legal and protected. This means their funds are protected and it has that government backing, which it doesn't already have. So don't get confused by that. This was actually agreed on. They felt that it should be, and that's because it's a Liberal government at this time. So the Liberal government agreed. They felt it should be protected, and this led to the Trade Union Act. This is one you can actually add. In 1871, which made them fully legal. Something which the friendly societies had had for ages. So again, it's a long, drawn-out process for trade unions, but they are successful in the end. And that success is kind of shown with the TUC, which is the Mac Daddy of trade unions. It is the United Union of Unions. And it is that one voice. That is the point of it. It is one voice, not all these little versions that are causing lots of problems. One of the arguments with the NMUs is that they kind of forgot the little guys, whereas the Trade Union Congress is trying to get everybody involved. Okay, this actually had a lot of political backing as well, so they were able to create a new working man party. New working man's party. So again, they've got backing, they've got that government work, they've got that agreement and that acceptance. And once the acceptance is there, they are able to do really, really well. And that's why the TUC is kind of the pinnacle of that. And that's why it's actually managed to last. Now, this, in a nutshell, is all of the trade union topic. I have added extra notes onto PowerPoint, which I'll put onto Teams. So if you need to have a look at anything else, then that should hopefully help. Hope that's been of use, and any questions, let me know. Thank you very much. Bye.